Hey everyone, this is Lisa from Life in Layouts, and today I have the grab bag reveal from Kellybell Designs National Scrapbook Day weekend. I pulled out a sketch from the sketches for the 6x6 paper pad class, and I'm going to be using sketch number 9. When I saw this collection, I knew that I had to have it. I was so excited about all of the content that is in this collection. The partner statue is an amazing statue at Magic Kingdom that is right in front of the castle. And I knew that I wanted to showcase this statue, but I also really wanted to talk more about Walt and Mickey than the statue itself. So what I decided to do was to create some 2x2 squares with the pattern paper that is in the collection. I used my 2x2 square stitching die to cut out all of my squares, and then I did plan out all of my embellishments on the Silhouette Design Studio and then use the print and cut features to cut them out. I did make the mistake of moving down one of the images as well as a couple of the flowers after I had printed it out. Just a rookie mistake. So I do have to reprint that later on. But I figured that I would go ahead and see exactly what embellishments I needed to use because I did print out a little bit more than what I had planned for, just because I knew that I wanted to do a lot of embellishments on these squares. The collection includes gold, black, and red, but as I was looking through the embellishment pieces, I was really drawn towards the gold and black, so I decided to forego any of the red pieces from the collection. On the very top, I'm going to have a row of gold paper. The second row is going to be a row of black, and then I was trying to figure out what I was going to do at the bottom. I only had one additional paper, and that was the white paper that had the gold stars on it. It's kind of hard to see in the video, but there is a gold print to it. I also knew that I wanted to print out 3 of the pass holder cards that have been available since I was a pass holder. When I first became a pass holder, we had the Circle Mickey pass holder image, and then we went to the 50th anniversary pass holders, and now we have the Mickey head inside of the letter D for Disney World. So I knew I wanted to include those, as well as this stock photo that's available if you purchase the Memory Maker from Disney. They tend to provide you with lots of stock photos, and this is just an amazing photo of the partner statue as well as the castle. Once I started to get the photos down, I then remembered that I didn't want to have paper in all of the squares. I knew that I was going to be using some of the circle elements as well as other embellishment pieces. I only had to reuse one paper, and that was the black paper that had the stars on it. But I decided to change it up a little bit and use this die that I recently picked up at the Scrapbook Expo that cuts out a 2x2 square, but it gives me Mickey heads all the way around. I hope you guys enjoyed all of the amazing things that happened over at Kellybell Design this past weekend. I know that the games were so much fun, and the participation prizes, as well as if you won a prize from Kellybell Design, was such an amazing thing. All of the participation prizes do coordinate with this collection, so hopefully you were able to pick up this grab bag as well as some of the participation prizes for the events that went on this weekend. I did decide to lay the papers down flat, but the embellishment pieces that I was going to add, I knew I wanted to pop those up. So for that second row where the black paper is, the middle square is actually a sign from Walt Disney World, and it says, "In tribute of the philosophy and life of Walt Ellis Disney and the talents and dedication and the loyalty to the entire Disney organization that made Walt Disney's dream come true, may Walt Disney World bring joy and inspiration and new knowledge to all who come to this happy place. A magic kingdom where young at heart of all ages can laugh and play and learn together. Dedicated this 25th day of October 1971. And it has Roy Disney's signature at the bottom. I talked about it in my last video, but being a Disney adult is just one of those things that I love so much. I love being at the parks. I love being a pass holder, but it's things like the dedication signs and the partner statue and the castle that just warm my heart every single time I see them. I did also decide to use the ribbon in this collection, and instead of trying to cut it out, I just went ahead and let the silhouette do the hard work since it was such a tiny piece. I made it 1/4 inch wide, but I knew that I was going to need 2 pieces, so that I could cover the 12 by 12, but I'm going to cover up that seam with some embellishments. I do decide to add quite a bit of stitching to this layout. I'm first going to add a row of stitching over on the far left-hand side, and then I'm going to pull out this ruler that I still have no idea how to use, but it was pretty simple to make the squares inside of these 2 by 2 spaces. I did slow the video down here just a little bit to show you how I make my holes when I'm doing straight lines and not using a ruler. I start with the 4 corners of this particular square, and then I'm going to poke a hole in the center of each one of the lines. And then I'm going to find the center of the hole that's on the corner and the one that's in the middle of the line and create a hole in the center. And I'm going to repeat that until I feel like I have enough holes. Once I get all of the holes poked, I do erase all of my pencil lines. I'm going to use a black thread and a gold thread to make my squares, and I'm going to do a corresponding color with the row. So on the top row, I'm going to have the gold, and then on the bottom row, I'm going to have the black. I slowed the video down here so that you could see that I did a chain stitch on the outside edge just to give it a little bit more detail, and then I just did a back stitch on the squares in the center. I then decided to pull out my sprays. I haven't used these in a while, but once I got the gold and black splatters down, I remembered how much I love this look. I did save this box from one of my scrapbook shipments, and I put some pretty paper on the top of it just because I knew it was going to be on video and I wanted to show you guys some pretty paper. But it's a great way to make sure that you don't get splatters all over the place. And then I just keep that wax paper inside the box so it's ready to use over and over again. While the spray was drying, I decided to go ahead and put some foam adhesive on the back of each one of the squares that I was going to add to my layout. Now you might be thinking, hey Lisa, this is a 1-page layout, and you are absolutely right. I don't tend to do a lot of 1 pages, but this particular one I thought would be perfect for the opening page of my Disney album. I do have several Disney albums, and the opening as well as the ending page tends to be forgotten about. But I thought that this was a perfect way to start one of my Disney albums. Once all the spray dried, I went ahead and started to add the embellishments down. For the squares that I stitched, I decided to add some flares. The top one says magical, and then the bottom one says a treasured memory. I also added another embellishment that says a dream is a wish that your heart makes. At the top, I did add 2 tags that says so happy and it's all magical. And then over on the far left, I pulled out a card that says, if you can dream it, you can do it, and it quotes Walt Disney. And that is the square that I'm going to use to cover up the transition between those 2 pieces of ribbon that I had to piece together. I also decided to put my title piece up on some fun foam to really give it some dimension, and my happy place is a perfect way to title this layout. I did find these 3 passholder cards online, and I decided to cut them down to a 2 by 2 just to add them over to the right hand side. I feel like the addition of my passholder cards just gives a nod to the fact that I've been a passholder for multiple years and we've had multiple passholder cards available to us. I did group together these balloons. In one of the collections, there were balloons already grouped together, but it also included the red balloons. So I just recreated this image on the Silhouette software and then grouped them together and added an offset, and I made my own balloon cluster. I knew that the second passholder card at the top was going to create a little bit of trap space, so I was trying to fill that in, and I did decide on a gold flower as well as a black star to fill in that trap space. I did have to play around with it for a little bit until I got the right configuration. I did put the 2 passholder cards that are no longer available down flat, and then had my current passholder card up on fun foam. Over on the left-hand side, I decided to add a black star to that cluster as well. And since that square was up on fun foam, I did have to add some fun foam to the back of the star as well. I really wanted to include this partner statue, but it was just too big. Even after moving it around several times, I thought that even if I made it smaller, it just didn't seem to fit right on the layout. So I do forego adding the partner statue sign on my layout. Right underneath my title, I do add a tag that says, I only hope that we don't lose sight of one thing, that it all started with a mouse. And I thought that that was perfect to add right next to the 50th anniversary passholder card that has Mickey Mouse on it. I then decided that I wanted to add a bunch of tiny stars or hearts. I couldn't figure out which one I wanted, so I went ahead and made a bunch of the bases which that means that there are 2 pieces of white cardstock stacked together. I did them both in the hearts and the stars, and you can see that I have little tiny jars that I keep my bases in. I decided a while ago that I would create the bases and have them easily available. That way I only have to cut out the top layer when I'm adding them to my layout. I also decided to cut out some tiny Mickey heads to add them to the layout along with the stars. I have a big pile of mess over on the right of hearts and stars, but I eventually do just stick with the stars. I decide where I want my tiny stars to be by first just placing down the base. I scattered the stars throughout the layout, and once I got a configuration that I liked, I then used the pattern paper that I cut out in the stars as well as the Mickey head to put on top of my tiny stars as well as my tiny Mickey heads. I still was going with that tone-on-tone look, so at the top on that gold chevron, I added a Mickey head with the firework print as well as some stars. And then I added the gold starburst design to the gold starburst square at the bottom. For my clusters that are on the left-hand side and the right-hand side of the layout, I decided to just stick with black and gold, so I did mix those up. I usually add the adhesive right to the layout, then add my base to it, then add adhesive to the base, and then add the top layer of the pattern paper. I did zoom in here so that you could see a little bit of what I was doing by putting down the base first and then adding the pattern paper on top of it. This is one of those signs that I moved after I printed it, so it didn't print out right. And I did have to scale it down a little bit. I had made it 2 inches, but I wanted it to fit inside the square. This particular sign says, "Here you leave today and enter the world of yesterday, tomorrow, and fantasy." And then I pulled out my black enamel dots. I just added a couple of enamel dots to add a little bit of extra texture to the layout. And then of course I added a sparkly Mickey head over to my title cluster as well as to that black and white paper. And then that is it for this video. Here is my final layout as well as some close-ups. I did do my journaling offline and I printed it on vellum. It says, "There's nothing quite like walking down Main Street, USA and seeing the partner statue. Walt Disney hand in hand with Mickey, framed by the iconic Cinderella Castle. It's a reminder of Walt's vision. Here you leave today and enter the world of yesterday, tomorrow, and fantasy. Each visit allows me to relive cherished memories, dream about the future, and get lost in the timeless stories that make Disney so special." If you enjoyed this video, if you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already and you want to see more double page layout inspiration, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks everyone for watching, and I hope that you have a scrappy day.